Stage 4, the monster's human, just like us. Can be either good or evil, it's up to them. Okay? It's their choice. And then stage 5 is Twilight. Okay. The monster is sparkly, and they're a god, a golden god, and they're beyond human, they're better than everyone. Right? So vampires, zombies right now, are on stage what? Stage 2. Right? So the idea of this game is simply, let's take, the same way I did with vampires 20 years ago, is to take vampires from stage 2 to stage 4, jumping over stage 3. So that's what I did. That was the whole idea. So basically spent a couple of years knocking my head against the wall. Okay, and then the number one rule I say in game design is creative destruction. Creative destruction means that you're never satisfied with an idea. So you get a bunch of ideas, you write them down. I use Google Docs. I think Google Docs is great because then your entire team can be on the Google Docs at the same time. Okay? It should never, I don't believe in one person goes off to the ivory tower and then 2 days later comes down with a great idea. That does happen. That does happen, and you should applaud when that happens. Yay, great! But that's no way, you can't design a game thinking that's gonna happen. You should design a game which is everyone in a room, a chat room, a doc where you're all throwing ideas in and you're throwing up stuff. But then someone's got to go, we can do better. So you take that idea, all those ideas, you put them together, you build a 1 or 2 pager, I call them, where it explains your whole idea, and then you look at it and you go, yeah, that sucks. Again? You do it again. And you go, no, that sucks. Do it again. No, that sucks. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Now, if you have time to flesh out those ideas, do an app or something like that, then go ahead and do that. But if you're planning to spend a large part of your time, like I spent 3 years on that, okay, I'm not going to spend 3 years on something that isn't really good basic idea, right? That's a waste of time. I'm going to come up with something shitty, or even worse, I'm going to come up with something that is steals too much. And what you'll find initially is that all your initial ideas, you're stealing everything, right? So you're stealing from here, you're stealing from there, you're stealing from here, you're stealing from there. And that's just normal. Creativity is like that, which is why you do creative destruction, so you can get rid of those ideas you stole and move it forward. And what you'll find is you do this, let's say, to the 7th, 7 times, is that by the end of it, you and your team have a new vocabulary. You know, you'll automatically have a way, someone will go, yeah, that's too flappy. Okay, and that'll just mean for your team it's too much like Flappy Birds or whatever you're trying to do. You'll have this vocabulary and you'll have these new words, and as you're going, you make a glossary. This is the most important part of the game design process. You build a glossary of the key ideas and components in the game. And then from that glossary, you're going to have a shared vocabulary, okay, for that game. Each specific game, not just for your group, but for that specific game in a glossary. Even if you're on your own, you need to do this. You need to create a destruction, you need to have a glossary. The glossary is like your building blocks, right? So let's say in this game, I came with this idea called brains, okay? So there's a game mechanic that's brains, and that's basically in this game it's chips. In a computer game, that would be tokens, a unit of measure, whatever. So those aren't brains. So brains is a very common thing in I'm Zombie. So once in a zombie world, right? So but once I have brains, I go, okay, how can I do this differently? Okay, what can we do with brains? So this is like a unit of measure. It's their word in my world for moxie. You know the word moxie? Yeah. For like, yeah, like it's like, you know, toughness, gumption, getting shit done. You know, that's brains. But also, I came up with those other ideas. Like, for instance, if you eat someone's brains, and that's illegal, I believe in making things illegal in games. The more things you make illegal, the more fun it is for people to break that law. Even if it's a common thing, it's way more fun if, you know, in the world it's illegal to do stuff, right? Mm-hmm. You always want to build your characters to do illegal things. If you eat someone's brains, you get their memories. So it's like a drug. So if you take the wrong brains, you have a really bad trip. You know, if you actually take the brains of a drug addict, you're going to have a really bad trip.
Yeah.
But if you take the brains of a child with this beautiful life in a big mansion, you're going to have the best 8-hour trip of your life, you know? And then, of course, at the end, there's going to be a little sadness that, you know, they're not around anymore.
Oh.
But that's the monster. I love monsters for this two-sidedness of it all, okay? So, any questions so far?
Yeah, plenty of them.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so, well, first I'd like to comment, when you said that we were stealing from others' ideas, I'd like to call that getting inspired by them.
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like...
Call whatever you want, it's stealing.
You can't actually patent board game mechanics, can you?
No, it's like the fashion industry.
Yeah.
You can't patent the dress design. You can't patent rules.
Mm-hmm.
You can name rules, but you can't patent. Of course, some companies have tried. For instance, Wizards of the Coast that made Magic: The Gathering.
Yeah.
We patented it. Now I advised everyone. I said this patent will not stand, but it will scare everyone long enough. So tapping, the way you take your card and go to the side, that is patented. But I don't think it would ever hold up in court. But no one's ever challenged it.
Yeah.
So legally speaking, you don't have to win to have, you know, power.
Yeah, and like other games have done it already. For example, like Dominion and Game of Thrones, the board game, they have the simple core mechanic of how units fight with each other.
Yeah.
And then there's Risk, which is basically the same, but you just add dice rolls to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That's called an area control mechanic.
Yeah.
It's one of the ancient rules, because chess has it. There's this area control mechanic, yeah.
And I wanted to ask, like, you have been developing like the Vampire the Masquerade, the Bloodlines video game, or the pen and paper RPG?
Both.
Or both of them.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Oh, okay, cool. So, basically, I believe that we're always stealing, okay? Like, every time you speak, you are using words someone else invented. You cannot have a thought without stealing, something that someone else invented. You know, Cartuli is an ancient language, and so most of the words are so far in the past. But there are some words borrowed that we can actually know the people who invented those words. Like silicon chip. Okay, we know who invented that word. Okay, I forgot who it is, but there's a guy. Okay, so we're stealing these things. These things are concepts in our head, we're stealing them. Which is why I say it's so important to make your own glossary. Because then suddenly you're putting a word to an idea, and something that could be something new probably won't be new. You're going to think it's all new, and then you're going to realize little by little bit it's not new. For instance, my whole brains thing, where you eat them, that was in this Warm Bodies movie, which someone kindly reminded me a few months ago, and it pissed me off. Because I beat them, but they got out to market before me, so they technically beat me.
Also, the iZombie TV series or TV show, I think that's the case there too. Like when you eat someone's brains, you get their memories.
And I think it's going to be, I think everyone will use it from now on. It's a damn good idea. So of course we're going to use that. Yeah. You know, it's okay to steal sometimes. It's okay to go with the mythos.
Yeah, but like sometimes when you steal like a couple of things and mix them together, you get something new, which is great.
That's my new point, is that is a definition of new. Nothing can be completely new. But if you take all you do is two ideas and put them together, that's something new. Have you ever seen Picasso's bull sculpture? He went to a scrapyard in Spain and he found bicycle handlebars like that. Yeah. And then he found a bicycle seat that was long and narrow, a racing bicycle seat. All he did is put them together, and the bicycle seat was a bull's head and the things were the horns. And he sold it for like $10,000, and now it's worth $30 million. Okay? He put two things together, and it made something new. But you know what? Anyone else walking through that junkyard might not have seen that. They didn't see that. Hundreds of thousands of people went through this junkyard and never saw that. All over the world, millions of people went through junkyards and saw a bicycle seat and the handlebars and never saw a bull. Picasso had the name, but he also had the vision. So you can put just two things together and make something original. But I think it's better if you put together 20 things. You know, because I like more complicated work. Even in a really simple app. You know, if you can create somehow that experience of it, that they're being they're being transported somewhere else, people are going to get much more into the game. And there's just games that are like that. You want to get a certain mood. For instance, Peace Park. You know, the whole idea of that is to sort of get people into this sort of childish little world of fun and laughter. and sort of create this mood and sort of transport you somewhere else. And that was the game. And I think doing that is what people want to feel.
Also, like, how do you know if you want to create a PvE game or a PvP game, a competitive? For example, like,
Elder Sign?
Elder Sign. Like,
yeah.
Everyone loves Elder Sign.
Yeah, Ken Ralston did that, my friend.
Oh. And the thing is that it's getting repetitive the more you play it. Because first time you beat it, okay, then you beat another boss, another, and like when you finish the whole game, like you don't want to play that anymore. Well, when you play PvP games, you're playing it with other people, and you get the satisfaction of winning or having a good battle every time you play it.
Yeah. So, well, now what's coming in is the idea of 4 players against 1.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of these different things, But I think it's, first of all, I think it's wonderful we're having these games that come up that it's still a game, but it's not competitive. It's competitive, but you're working against the game. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great example of how games really aren't about, you against all your friends, although I love those games. I don't always want to play them, But for me, I think the best way is that you can do it both ways. So for instance, this game is both a role-playing game, like you play characters, one guy's the narrator, you all play the game with them, but also it's a card game, it's a board game. So you can play it either all the players against each other, or as a co-op game, all of them against the game. So I think this is the new style of game that's coming up. It'll be games that you can play 10 different ways. It used to be games you could play one way, and my general feeling is that what's going to be coming up is this whole idea that you can play games any way you want to. They're kind of more open-ended.
Freedom to the player.
Freedom to the player. And that used to be a big no-no. It used to be that players are like, oh no, that would be too many rules, and the rules won't be clear. If you leave things open, then we don't like it. But I think if you tell people ahead of time it's supposed to be that way, then I think they'll be okay with it.
Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you keep it simple yet more mobile enough so you have players making like 10 different choices without overcomplicating the mechanics?
Two ways. First of all, you have a core mechanic. Okay, this is for board games more than anything else, but on role-playing games, you have a core mechanic. So you have one core mechanic that everything ties into, and all the rules apply to that. So for instance, in this game, you have a core mechanic of a roll, and it's like kind of like King of Tokyo, or which is based on Yahtzee. Anyone ever heard of Yahtzee?
Of course.
Okay, so there's a mechanic that Richard Garfield and I years ago argued over what would be the best game to steal, and we both agreed Yahtzee, and then he beat me, but I'm doing it anyway.
Oh, was it the creator of King of Tokyo? Oh.
Yeah, Richard Garfield. He also designed Magic the Gathering.
No. Yeah.
So anyway, the core mechanic is that you have a certain number of dice based on the number of cards you have of a certain color. So blue color is physical. And then you have a number of rerolls equal to if you have the right ability, which is listed on the encounter card, or in role-playing, whichever one the game master lets you play, right? So you roll that many dice, and then you re-roll them. Then at the bottom, there's the rules that let you play with the rules and bend them your way, called twists. And that's basically a simple version of mechanics. Everything uses that same mechanic, right? So you can be very detailed on the mechanic, show everything does it, and then you can say to people, and then here's 30 different axioms, okay, and this book is made up of different axioms. You could say, choose which axioms you want to play with, ignore the rest, or invent your own. So the basic game has the core mechanics, but then you can add on yourself as you go, right? And so I think a good example of this is Minecraft.
Yeah.
Minecraft, the same basic rules. You know, you gotta get these resources, you gotta combine them together to make things, you gotta hide from the ghosts, you gotta survive the night, blah, 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 right? But then from that, people have designed all these incredible things and been creative on their own. And what has made Minecraft so popular? YouTube, right? Everyone posts the cool shit they made in Minecraft, and it's spread like wildfire because everyone wants to show off how cool they are, right? Never underestimate the power of cool. People want to be cool, right? They want to be cool.
They want to tell their friends that they are cool.
Yes. But they don't want to play a cool game. Like it used to be, you got cool because you played a cool game. And you're the first one to play it. And you could say, oh, I played the game before you. And then everyone realized how fucking stupid that was, right? Everyone realized how dumb that was. Just because you're first doesn't mean anything. And now, if you talk about being first on the internet, they'll get pwned. I mean, it'll be terrible. But now, what people want, they want to be the originators and say, I built this using this. They want to be the cool person. They want to show their project. So the games that work the best, I think, in this modern day are the games where you allow the player to make something really cool that that player can show off to the world and be cool. If you can do that and make fun gameplay in a cool world, but then have an end product they can show off online, in a YouTube video, and a piece of art, something, anything, then that game will take off. That is the key thing right now.
How do you achieve the same thing with a board game, though?
Okay, so in a board game, it's actually easier in some ways. Because in a board game, historically, people have always drawn pictures of their characters, posted pictures of the told stories about their characters, written about their characters. So at this point in this game, to make a character, unlike most games where you have to spend a full game session making a character, in this game you just pick 5 cards. So all you have to do is you can basically pick 5 cards, and then you just post a picture of a way in which you can just show your character, and you can just post that and show their character. But of course we can't have videos or movies yet, but we do have a way, we do have a whole online tool that was built by our team in Netherlands, where you can play an entire game on Hangouts with our tool which shows the cards and take a movie of that. And people actually watch this. I don't know if you've seen this, but people playing role-playing games online is actually a fairly popular viewing experience. It's not like Dota, people watching Dota videos, but it's surprisingly popular. Some of these games have, you know, tens if not 20s of thousands of hits of people watching them, which for me, I don't understand that, but people do it. So you can do it. And board games, people do show videos of them playing board games. Even more so as, you know, board game apps are incredibly popular.
Yeah, there's a YouTube channel called Tabletop, Geek and Sundry, and Will Wheaton plays, like, hosts a show with others playing video games. I mean, board games. And
you're late. Sorry. No, it's okay.
And like that, for example, I think brings popularity to board games, like as they deserve it. Oh,
the tabletop has radically changed board games. It's part of the huge thing. That's the one thing about, you know, here we don't really have a store that sells board games.
Yeah, we have to order.
But in America, yeah, it's so expensive, USA to Georgia. But in the States, you go into the big chain bookstore, B. Dalton, and they have 2 aisles just stuffed full of board games. And it's incredible. It's like you realize, okay, my hobby is really, really powerful. Whereas, you know, computer games used to have their own shops in the mall, like GameStop and all that. But now no one uses those anymore. It's all on Steam or whatever. So it's weird how everything is transformed. But I think, you know, board games, I mean, have definitely taken off. You can design a board game. You know, I know board game designers who are making, you know, quite a bit of cash. And the great thing about it is that you can do it as a team or as 1 or 2 people, you know. And whereas a computer game, you know, nowadays, you know, you can do an app for cheap. But it's just so hard to get the app noticed, you know. And that's next thing I want to talk about is the money. How do you make money? Basically, you know, a lot of people talk about game design and kind of gloss over that, you know, just like they teach how to make movies. And they never talk about the money part. You know, when the most important part is getting the money to make it and then making money from it. Right? And that's true of any artistic endeavor. And we live in a capitalist world. You know, it's not a world in which the government funds art. Okay, some countries, yes. Norway, Sweden, you know, some countries do that, but not many. Certainly not America. Certainly not Georgia. Right? The key thing is to figure out how to get the money to make your game and how to make sure your game makes the money. Okay? And let's start with getting the money. Okay, beg, borrow, steal. Okay, Kickstarter is just a more advanced way to do that. In the old days, you would just go to everyone you knew and you say, "Can I have $100?" It may work, it may not, but if it works, I'm going to give you $500. You know, I went to my grandparents. My grandparents lent me $5,000, which back in the day was a lot more than it is now. And my parents actually went to the bank, and on the basis of their good name, they borrowed $5,000, and that's the money I had to start my first company, along with $5,000 I saved myself from working nights at a mental hospital. Okay, so I had 15 grand. So I got all my friends together. I said, I'm not paying anyone anything, but we're going to design this together, and if it succeeds, everyone's going to have a job. That's the best I can do. I'm on the line for all this money, so no one's getting a share of this company, because I'm the one who has to pay it back for the rest of my life if this doesn't work, you know? So you're not going to get any shares unless you want to invest money, and that's it. And they said, okay, we'll help you. And so, you know, from the very beginning I was very hardcore with the money. But I had to be, because investing money is a serious thing. And then we basically designed a game. And that was Vampire. And basically, half of that money, one half, went to marketing. Okay, which back then means we made a full-color, 16-page flyer that we sent to every distributor in the world, and they passed it out in game stores. Nice. That's what marketing was back then, right? This is just before internet became big. You know, I was on the internet, but no one else was. You know, just 4 years before, it was still called ARPANET. Okay, so we geeks were hardcore geeks were still on there, but most of our fans weren't. Okay, so what we spent on that flyer, we printed 200,000 of these things. And it wasn't a one-page flyer, people threw it away. We decided we're going to do a 16-page, glossy, beautiful thing. We really put our money into it to show people the world. And the version of that would be, you know, you build an incredible website. Okay, that's 10 years ago. Okay, so what would be the version, if you guys had a game right now and you had $50,000, what would you just, what would be your brilliant idea for doing the marketing? Today, what's the best way to spend $50,000 in marketing right now?
Probably, no, not really. Actually, like advertisements on YouTube channels.
Nope. Huh?
Go to conventions, that's the only way.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah, conventions. Yeah, like game jam.
But if you're going to create some sort of media, what would be the best single thing to do?
Right now? Like, if it was a board game, for example, I'd pay Geek and Sundry for them to play my game, basically.
You can.
Yeah.
They won't do that.
No,
but that would be the best, obviously, you know.
US Rotal was the best choice.
Yeah.
Not the Void one.
I think the best way right now is not a website. Those are so, you know, last decade. I think probably the best way right now is a video. But not a YouTube video, a Facebook video. No. You know why you do a video on Facebook? Because Facebook gives you higher algorithm results if it's a Facebook-centered video than it is a YouTube video. So you almost want to have a Facebook video just to get those initial results, get it popular, then you can switch it back out to YouTube again. Video is one way. The other way, I think, is just the good old-fashioned guerrilla marketing. Do something crazy, really crazy. Have someone jump off a roof or threaten to. Pretend you launched a mouse to the moon. Whatever you're doing, find some crazy idea and then just viral market the hell out of that crap. You know, guerrilla marketing works. So, you know, going to convention and, you know, releasing 100 rats with little messages on their tails. I don't recommend that, but, you know. In other words, you have to spend not only half your money, but half your imagination on marketing. You got to be clever. If you don't, you know, you're going to go nowhere. You're going to go nowhere. You're going to have a great game that doesn't get discovered. And by the way, there are 1,000 great games every year that could have been huge, that could have been made a fortune, but went nowhere because they spent 100% of their time on the game. But if you spend all your time, all your creativity, all your money in the game, you know, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Now, you know, if you worked in Hollywood, you're a California game designer. Okay, you can just join a big company, and if you're cool enough, they're going to hire you, man. And all you have to do is work about the game, you know. But you know, thankfully, you're not in California, and you're on your own because it's going to be a better experience, I think, than working for a giant company. Trust me, being a game designer in a giant company is horrible. Like a lot of my friends now, years later, are all at the top of their field doing these amazing games. But you know how most of them began? On the phone, helping kids figure out what to do in the next level. And then there were level design testers. And that's actually considered better than being on the phone. So you just sit there and you play the same level over and over again, and then the programmers yell at you. Okay? Literally, I had a friend who did that for 3.5 years. He played the same levels of Doom and all of the different first-person shooters over and over again. Okay, that's hell. Okay, that's no fun, you know? It's a job, I guess, in gaming. But it's like being, you know, a World of Warcraft farmer in China. You know, who wants to be a farmer, man? That's just horrible. Sure, you're working in gaming, you know, but is it really that fun? I don't think so. Okay, so you got to figure out, you know, marketing is key. Marketing is everything. And if you don't do your marketing, if you don't do your homework, you're just going to sit there and you're going to have a great game. You're going to be really, really frustrated because you didn't reserve any time or money for what's going to get that game noticed. Okay? And nowadays, what gets noticed is a new idea. So hopefully your game is about a new idea. So that's where the creative destruction comes in. Is that you got to have the core game, the core mechanic, be something new that no one's ever seen before. So by way of example, in this game, most role-playing games nowadays, or forever, have been basically Dungeons and Dragons, is you have a piece of paper that's photocopied, and you spend re-rolling dice, and you spend basically an entire game session writing up your character. And it takes a whole game session. And no one has time for that anymore. Okay, you have to be really hardcore in a game. First of all, just grab out a pencil. Okay, I don't pull out, I can't even find pens in my house, okay? My kids steal them. I don't use them. Okay, everything is on a computer now. Why would I want a pen? You know. So the idea of this game is you just pick 5 cards. So boom, that's a brand new thing, never been done before. The idea of a role-playing game with unique dice and tokens, that hasn't been done before. The idea of a role-playing game where most role-playing games have a world, right? They have a very complicated world, and my idea in this is that over the years I just remembered people who played Vampire would always say to me, I have this friend, she loves vampires, we really want to play with us because she's so fucking hot. But she won't play because every time we show her the book, she freaks out over the math. She freaks out over the rules and all the stuff. You know, don't you have a book that we can just give her that explains the world without all the stuff? Because she doesn't need to know any rules. We'll tell her the rules. We just want this beautiful goth girl to come game with us. So the idea of this book is that there are no rules in it. All the rules are in this little brochure, in this little booklet, right? This has no rules in it. This is just a book written by zombies for zombies, right? So basically the guys who created the book were all in it as the inventors, Purgatory Press. So not only is this book made, but we all have alter egos. So the entire game staff, we all have alter egos in the world. Sandra will be in the next one. So we'll all have alter egos. So we go to conventions, we actually go in costume, and we play these characters. So we're full-time in the world. See, that's how important the world is to me, that we're part of the world. We're in it. It's real. And when people write to me at this address, as Balthazar Black, I respond to them as Balthazar Black. That is my character. I play it.
Role-playing is finest.
Okay, role-playing is finest. That hadn't been done before. Okay, so we got 4 brand new things this game does. Okay? And then I had ideas for 20 more things that would be brand new, never done before, best ideas ever. And I said, no. I drew the line. You can't do too much in the game. If you go too innovative and too much, you're going to leave your audience behind. People are able to come just so far, and then they get scared, they get freaked out, and they don't want to go any further. And I think I went maybe too far on this for a mass audience. Now, maybe not. I think I balanced it just right. I have a sense of these things, but maybe I keep waking up in the middle of the night going, I went too far, I went too far, I went too far. But I do know that I had way more better ideas, and I cut them off. I said no. I was ruthless. Ruthless. And that's the hardest thing when you're a creative person, is to have a great idea and go, oh, nope. So what you do is you have a secret place, and all your beautiful ideas go in that secret place. Okay? Write them down. Lock it up. Have an air-gapped computer if you need to. Have a notebook, whatever, you know, and lock that shit away and save it. You have plenty of time. And trust me, you know, I have a drawer full of my old notebooks. Like literally 2 drawers full of literally, I think it's like 40 or 50 notebooks. And there's even more at my dad's house, okay? Just sitting there. And there's nothing I like better when I'm having a problem being creative than going through my old notebooks and reading that shit that I didn't use, because that's going to get me going, okay? But you know what? Write all your ideas down. Don't use them all. Throw them away, okay? Have a limit. Put limits on yourself. And anytime you have a hard time coming up with a new idea, okay, that's because you haven't put any limits on yourself. So let's say you're saying, okay guys, let's brainstorm. You're all sitting on the table, you have your pizza, you have your beer, let's brainstorm guys, let's come up with an idea. And everyone's like, let's have some pizza. Okay, that doesn't work that way. The creativity does not work that way. You gotta say, and here are the limits. Here is what we're gonna do. The game has to be learned with no rules. You'll be able to just be able to look at the game and be able to play it without reading any rules. The game has to be really freaking scary. The game has to be use a rule system people are familiar with somehow, and it has to be connected with a nursery rhyme. What? But then the ideas will start to flow, and all these limits create creativity. Put limits on, and you will be creative. Take the limits off, and everyone will flounder.
Also research.
Oh yeah, and research. Yeah, Sander knows this. Basically, I love research. Like one thing he was kind of shocked by, he told me recently, is that I will spend an entire day on words. Most games, even apps, have shitty words. They use the worst and the dumbest words you can ever imagine. They're like, okay, this power is called force. And this power will be called magic spell. And this power will be called weight. You know, and for me, I don't generally, like brains for me is absurdly simple to use. I just only used it because it's so zombie. But the rest of the words in this book are, you know, for instance, Amarani and I Am Zombie is the original zombie. Okay, so we use, you know, but anyway, we'll spend literally days looking up words, you know, just for one word. And it's not wasted time, because the whole time you're doing that research, you're meditating on the game. You're thinking about it. It's never a waste of time. And you're coming with words, and once again, all the words you can't use goes into your secret file. So later on you can use it, okay? You don't waste anything, it goes in your secret file. That's your back pocket, okay? You ever go to work for a big game company? And they say, and they go to you, okay, by tomorrow morning at 9 you do a presentation. That's what saves your ass. That's what saved my ass many, many, many times. Having these notebooks, okay? That was an amazing thing, yeah?
Well, when do you know that you are overcomplicating things, like using too many innovative things?
My best way to do it is when I find someone new to explain it, at the moment their eyes gloss over and roll back in their head, then you've gone too far. You know? And just try explaining to someone like your grandma or your aunt, you know, who's mildly into it, but not really, or a person who's kind of a gamer, but not really. Just sort of explain to them and just sort of see when they sort of, you know, and actually demonstrate. Like, I love testing games out just by sort of demonstrating the cards and little, like advertising agencies do when they show, here's our new commercial. Have you ever seen how advertising agencies do it? They'll have a little landscape and they'll show, and they'll do a little acting. You know, I love doing that for people because that way I can sort of explain my game in this sort of wonderful, lively way, but you can still see when their heads go back in their head and they're like, no, it's too much, you know? But generally I would say, simple, 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 simple. You know? This is the new era, right? Does anyone have time to spend, like it used to be when you play computer games, you had a rule book, you know? And the first thing you did is you like, okay, I got SimCity, the first SimCity, I was so excited about it, I pulled up the rule book and started reading it. And I read the whole damn thing, and then I loaded it and played it. Well, it was loading the whole time, actually. Okay, oh, that's in the DOS day. Okay, so it was actually loading for half an hour, so you had time to read the book. So, but nowadays, no one has time for that. No one has time for your game. You know, unless they can play your game like that, without any effort, without any reading, they're not going to play it. Now, I come from a different world. In the role-playing world, you can have rules, you can have a world. You know, people love worlds, right? Yeah. So they will, if you can make it so the rules of your game are hidden in the world, then people will read it, okay? Actually, but I'll say this, online, they won't read it. They won't. Now, maybe they might listen to a video. Yeah. They might listen to a monologue as long as it doesn't say, in the beginning, there was a kingdom of snow and frost, fighting a kingdom of fire. Okay, that's just dumb and cheesy, right? No one, they're gonna turn it off, click. But you can say instead, you know, she was a woman more exciting than any woman I ever met in my life, and then she fucked me. Okay? The guys who listen to that go, maybe I'll listen to this a little bit. I might learn something, right? Right? A guy's gonna go, yeah, and the girl's gonna go, that's a powerful woman. I like her. Right? You grab someone, you know? You grab someone and you're creating a world through the context of a story. And that's my last thing. Story. All game design is storytelling. People don't realize that. They think games don't have stories or they don't need stories. It's all stories. We human beings, we think in terms of stories, right? Everything has a beginning, middle, and end. Our life is a beginning, middle, and end. Okay? Everything we perceive about reality is based in terms of a story. This pen dropped because I let it go, and then it ended up on the floor. Okay? That's a story. Right? It's a very simple story. It's a pretty boring story, but it's a story. And more importantly, it's a story nugget. It's an action. It's an action within a story. Okay? And so any game you do has to be a story. Flappy Bird. Let's go back to Flappy Bird. It's my favorite example of this because it's so simple. Can anyone tell me what the story is of Flappy Bird?
Nothing. What's the story, man?
Existentialism, baby. Existentialism. It is the futility of life. It's how pointless life is. The reason people love that game is not because the mechanics are so genius and it taps into some addiction on the part of humans. No. That game captures the frustration of life. That it's so frickin' futile sometimes. You just do the same thing over and over again and you don't succeed until finally one day you get exactly right and you do.
What about Dark Souls? I mean, you get to die, but in the end you can finish the game. But in the Flappers, you just beat your own record and nothing.
Yeah. Listen, it is basically people who are tired of games having this other kind of story that's a heroic story, and Flappy Birds is like the opposite. Has anyone ever heard of the famous game where you're just driving a bus to the desert and like every 5 minutes something happens? I think it's called Bus 37. Well, no, it's a famous game where literally it takes like 120 hours. You can play it forever, basically. And there's a bus going through the desert, and nothing happens. Okay? And that's kind of like Flappy Birds. And people are obsessed with this game. They're obsessed with it.
Playing that game. I mean, you are wasting your time.
Yeah, well, ask them.
I think it's exactly the point. I think it's talking about the futility of playing games. I think it's like a beautiful poem, a haiku, on games that we are kind of wasting our time in these games in a way, aren't we? Yeah, you know, I mean, it's not real life, is it? And it's kind of this weird meditation. Usually, people who are most into that game are game designers. You know, and so I think that there's stories in all these games, right? So there's hidden stories. There's stories. And every game has a story, and so find the frickin' story. Have a story, you know? If you don't have a story, you don't have a game, period. You know? And if you can figure out why people like the game, it's going to be about the story. So if you can know your story, and not just the light story, Kingdom of Fire and Ice, fighting, no, that's not a story, that's a mythos. And that used to work, but no, it doesn't work anymore, right? Because everyone's seen that fantasy game a bazillion times. You need an original story, you know, and it doesn't have to be, you know, oh, let's do like Star Wars, or yeah, let's do this like a soap opera, but something that has a little, that means something to you, you know, like if you have a problem with your father, and you guys fight a lot, then make that in the game. Use your life. Use your own life. Use something you're passionate about. You know, if you have a girlfriend who broke your frickin' heart, put that in the game. That's the sort of stuff that makes a powerful story, that's going to attract people to your game, it's going to make it work. You know, you got to mind your life. And if you don't have any experiences, then by all means go out and have experiences right now. You know, do something. Do something crazy. Have life experiences. I'm convinced that one reason why I had success as a game designer is that when I was in my teens and my 20s, is I traveled the whole world. I just went everywhere and got into insane amounts of trouble. Just insane amounts of trouble. I was in conflict zones. I was getting shot at. You know, it was basically a very exciting time for me. And so I have this to mind infinitely. You know, I remember being shot at in Cambodia. I remember seeing people get killed. You know? And then you guys have grown up in Georgia. You lived through a war. You have experiences no American has. Okay? Just by living here. So mind those experiences. You know, tap into your own fear. Tap into your angst. You know, your anger at being, you know. This is stuff that creates stories. Great storytellers tell their own story, one way or another. So do it. Questions?
Yeah. All right. Again, so well, it's a bit we've been through this already, but there are games, for example, Risk, when RNG has such an effect that it personally turns me off from the game completely.
What?
RNG.
Randomness.
The
randomness.
Yeah.
The randomness. And like, how do you know? And there are games like more like chess, where only your skill matters. And there are games like Monopoly, where your persuasion skills matter, for example. And like, how do you balance that stuff out so it pleases most of your audience?
I like to say I have a formula.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, okay, I have this algorithm. No, I don't have an algorithm. This is an art form. It's an art form, right? Anyone has an algorithm for how to make the perfect balanced game, that's bullshit. Okay, this is art. It's pure art, okay? So what I do is trial and error, okay? Now, I played enough games that I know what I like, and so I always design for me. Or now that I'm older, I design for the younger me. And that's why I have a son, so that I can someday design for him, right? But you got to design either for yourself or someone close to you. You know, it's got to be something, because otherwise you're not, if you're just guessing, oh, I bet the market right now would really dig a game where like you play like a commando, man. Okay, you're guessing. You know, design for yourself or someone you know really, really, really well. Okay, and then you'll just know, you'll sense, oh, this is too complicated. But I'd say right now, in terms of randomness, is that we're moving away from that randomness in terms of computer randomness.
Randomness where you allow risk and reward.
Like in this game, I have these dice. Yes, risk and reward. I have these dice in it, right? You roll. But because you re-roll the dice, and these cards have twists that you screw with the dice, it seems random, right? It seems like you could get screwed up. But really, I figured out the math on it. You got screwed like 1 in 100 rolls, right? You always win. You always win. Okay, we designed it so you can kind of screw up a little bit, but you're always going to kind of win. You're never really going to lose. That's what people want, right? They want. We're all winners here, Donald Trump. We're all winners. I'm going to make America a winner again. Okay, everyone wants to be winners. Okay, so you got to sort of fudge it. You got to make them feel like they're about to lose. You got to make them feel like it, you know, or you do the opposite. You do Flappy Birds, where you make it so freaking hard. And there's a room for all these kind of games. There's first-person shooters that are like that are just so freaking hard. But I'd say, you know, just try and error. So what were you saying?
So risk and reward, for example, you could have a simple move that, for example, costs like 3 points, right? Yeah. But you don't do as much damage. And you have like a second attack, like a Huey attack. And if you attack with it, there's like 20% chance to miss. So then the player, it's player's choice to use that randomness. For example, as if you had like something like the sword has damage from like 10 to 25. like it's random. Like each time you hit, you get a different amount. But if you give a player a choice to make a more risky move, but there's a chance of failure, then player feels, okay, I screwed this up. No game,
I could.
So you can play it safe and do better, but if he takes the big risk, and of course they're always going to take the big risks, but then it's their fault. Okay, they'll blame the game if they lose, if it just happens because the rules tell them they have to do it. But if they made a choice and then failed, they blame themselves. Never ever have them blame the game for their failure. Always have them blame themselves.
They blame the dice most of the time.
Yes. They'll blame anything, but sometimes they will blame the game, and that usually is a failed game. If the players are blaming the game for how they lose, and listen to that for playtesting. If you hear one player say that, oh, the game made me lose, the game cheated me, or anything like that, whoa. That means you must immediately track that person down, find out why they feel that way, and figure out why that happened, and take that out of your game. Because you don't want the game to make people lose. You want people to feel like either the dice did or their own choices. I prefer to always have it be their choices or other players' choices that make them fail, but never the dice, never the game. Because it's no fun to blame the dice, and it's definitely bad for them to blame the game.
Okay, so my most important and final question shall be, for example, it's hard to become a developer. It's not hard to think of a game. Actually, it is. But when you've been through it, you think you have a great idea for a game. You think you have money, but where do you go? Whom do you go for them to draw your cards? Whom do you go to so they can print out the boxes? Where do you go from there?
Well, I mean,
when you're a new guy to that, you, for example,
design 20 games, throw them away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have your connections.
But when I started, I did. When I started, I was a college student, and I went to Gen Con, which back then was the biggest game convention in the world. 20,000 people. Ooh. And I paid $500, which is a lot of money for me back then, for a booth, and we sold a deck of Whimsy cards that I hand collated on my dining room table. My parents had a big oval table, and all my friends got so tired they couldn't do it, they got dizzy. So I spent 5 days, but at the end of it I had such bad tendonitis, my hands were like this, but I went like this around the table, and I made 2,000 decks of cards. I did that 2,000 times. Okay, it was so hard, but I did it because I was determined. Then we went to Gen Con, and we basically sold the hell out of those things. We sold like 300. But we became known. People introduced themselves to us. They said they admired us. We're kids, and we're doing something, you know? We were smart. Our first product wasn't a full game. It was just a thing you could use in other people's games to make them more fun, you know, so anyone could buy it. You know, we had a whole plan. And we basically took everyone's business card, and I emailed every single one saying, I was so happy to meet you. I'm really blah, blah, blah. And I just worked days on that email to make it the most. And then every email I personalized. And I had written on the back of every card, what about them was unique, and I talked to them. I just was so personable, and I just talked to everyone, and I worked my ass off, and I worked my way up. And every year for the next 15 years, had a booth at Gen Con, and by the end, you know, I was one of the founders of Woods of the Coast, and my other company, White Wolf, we had this huge party with naked people and fire dancers, and you know, it was pretty awesome. You know, but it took 15 years. It took a long time. And for you, there's no convention like that here in Georgia, although now there's starting to be these game jams, and we're meeting people, and so I would say start in Georgia, meet people, you know, meet people who can maybe take your board game and make an app out of it. People love board game apps. You can do an app first. Secondly, online, there's all these resources on how to find printers in China, how to get board games made, you know. But initially, I would just sell your game in Georgia. Just make your own set like I did, you know, make like 5 different games, pick one, and sell in Georgia, and then see how it goes, you know. Go to a convention in Ukraine, go to a convention in Turkey, go locally, you know, and see how, just practice. Practice makes perfect, you know. It takes 10,000 hours to get good at something, right? 10,000 hours. You will not be good at any instrument, any art form, anything unless you put 10,000 hours into it. 10,000 hours is years and years and years of work. So don't waste your money until you have the 10,000 hours in. You know, try to make money, but don't put money into it. I got lucky. I was about 7,000 hours into it when I got Vampire out, you know? But I was just starting, really, you know? But it was my everything to me. I did not want to have a real job. Let me tell you that. I was bound and determined not to have a real job, you know? But I was desperately poor. Like when White Wolf started, you know, I was eating day-old donuts from Dunkin' Donuts. So when Dunkin' Donuts came to Georgia, I freaked out. Because I ate Dunkin' Donuts for a year, because it used to be, you could buy day-old donuts from them. And by the way, a day-old donut is just awful. It tastes so terrible. We'd go there in the morning and we'd buy day-old donuts with stuff for our mouth, and then at the night we'd eat ramen noodles, and once a week we had a beer. And we lived that way for a year and a half, you know? But it was worth it. It was worth it, you know? You know, suffer for your art. The more you suffer, the greater your art will be.
Okay, and how do you have a successful Kickstarter campaign?
So hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to build up. You got to build up. You have a small Kickstarter originally. Start with $1,000 Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. You know, have a few people ready to come in at the last minute to get it there. Have some people come in right away. You know, so it begins a little bit of a rush. Email everyone you know in every country you know. Make a video. You know, make a really cool video. Be heartfelt. You know, be really heartfelt and say, hey, this is why I did this. This is why I love this. I hope you love it too. And then write people. Just write people at random who had Kickstarter before, ask them for their advice. You know, be very personal. You know, I think a lot of my success comes from the fact that I'm not afraid to talk to anyone, and that when I talk to them, I know how not to waste their time. I know how to be interesting, entertaining, and make people kind of, you know, have some affection for me. At least when I was a kid, you know, I had a kid kind of energy. Hey, my name's Mark. Can you help me? You know, I would smile and, you know, that works. That works. You know, older people want to help younger people. That's built into our nature, genetically. So, you know, I got the help of people like, you know, famous game designers who came before me.
Yeah, I would add that try to surround yourself with people who are as passionate about this stuff, because they're going to become the key figures. Like, they're going to become the best professionals in your area. So if you start meeting, like, finding people in your area who are like very passionate about this stuff, you will be able to find your team. You will have this context. Like, for example, all these people like from Stormbringer, I knew them before like anything started, and they helped me learn about everything. Like, I can go to Zuyad and he will teach me like anything about anything basically. Like Alex Lashke helps me with programming, and yeah, this helped me a lot, and this kind of like gave me a base to create like my crappy stuff at the beginning. And when I accumulated crappy stuff, I started making decent stuff, more or less. And then, like, Mark got interested. Like, when he needed an assistant as game designer, I had something to show. And then now I can learn from him. And I learned from him, like, in 3 months. I learned something that will take maybe 5 years for me to learn. So that's this stuff. Like, start with finding a people. Don't be afraid. Like, talk to everyone on the forums. Not even in Georgia. Like, go to like, if you want to make a board game, go to like the most hardcore board game forum with a lot of assholes, and yeah, find the people who are interested, try to make a game, try to make...
Finding people outside of Georgia is really important for you guys. Like, our team is all over the world, and we meet on Facebook and in Hangouts, and we're connected that way. You know, if you can make people outside of Georgia and then keep in contact with them and have a daily, you know, you're part of our team, let's stay in contact, let's work on this, that's going to really help, because they're going to have their set of friends, let's say in Australia, and in France, and America, and you know, Georgia. It's going to really, really help. And you can meet people online pretty well. Just keep your ear out. If you're playing, you know, if you're playing Call of Duty and some guy sounds like he's really smart and clever, then say, hey man, let's hang out sometime. You know, that's how you know, just really seek people out.
You can go to convention and show your game to like millions of people.
But that needs like finding and competence too. Like, for example, I don't know how to do that, and where do I learn how to do that?
I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So you know what I did? I was like, okay, I'll just get a booth. I didn't have a product. When I first got the booth, I did not have a product. I was just convinced I could come with a product, and my idea for a product was pretty dumb. If it was a smart idea, it would still be in print. It's not. You know, I'm proud of it, but it's not a print. But at least got us there, it got us meeting people, and I learned the industry. So you know,
it has books, articles, videos. You don't have excuse not to learn any skill.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying like it's hard to make the first step. Like,
sure. Okay, I'll give you an example. There's like 2 years ago at Essen Game Fair, one guy was in the jungles of Peru, the Amazon jungles. It came down from the mountain. He was living there for years, and he had been taking that drug ayahuasca, and lots of peyote and lots of mushrooms. So he did this whole game called Magic Mushroom, where it's all about drug trips. And he did this beautiful art, and it's a dumb game, but it looked beautiful, and it was just the weirdest game anyone had ever seen. And everyone I knew who had been at Essen all talked about how great this game. He sold out of all 500 copies of his game, and he did amazing. So if you did a game that had little Trotskys from Georgia and was about the game of, you know, the history of Georgia, but it just really captured the theme and feel of Georgia, and you had the little things in it, somehow did that, it would work. You could sell 500 copies. You could make it here, you know, out of stuff. You know, creativity you can beat any problem you have, and you can get enough money to buy a booth at Essen. You can. You know, and if you have a wild, weird idea for a game, it'll travel at light speed around Essen. It will. People will, at light speed, people will find out about it. Even though the convention is 58,000 people.
Now going at home and designing?
Well, designing is like sort of completed already, but I'm talking about more of making yourself known. Yeah, like final stages.
Screw that. Don't worry about that now. I'll help you in that next part. I'll tell you what. I'll give you, if you want to do it, make up a game made only of things, a board game made up only of things you can buy currently in Georgia.
Like the physical stuff? Or?
Yeah, physical. So it has to already be available in Georgia for cheap. So you know, but somehow invent a game like that. Maybe with one printed thing, a book obviously, and maybe a board. But everything else, you know, river stones. You know. I mean, you could invent this is not a practical game, it would be too heavy, but a fun game to play would be just balancing river stones on top of each other and doing a Jenga with Georgian river stones, okay? That's a bad example because it's too heavy.
Yeah, many Fab Labs, and they're really accessible, and there will be way more in Georgia, so you can print some stuff, cut out the book. So whenever you've got some idea, you can go to these Fab Labs, and they're really affordable.
The Japanese are fantastic at this.
Yeah, like,
but there's that whole game of string. Have you seen that? You just do a whole game by laying pieces of string down on the board. And there's no board, it's just the table. You just lay, so the entire game is pieces of colored string. You know? I mean literally you can make a game out of anything. It's just creativity.
Guys, who wants to play the true game now?
Yeah.
All right.
Who does not?
We can do one table in Georgian. You can do a Georgian table, and I'll do an English table. Okay? Yeah. The picture is not you, by the way. The picture is one of your contacts in that world you're from. So you look at it like anything you want to, but this picture can be, if you wish, to be your contact in this world of hitmen that you're part of. So this could be your, you know, frenemy, your ex-lover who you have a murderous relationship with.
This is very interesting. What do we do with it?
Leftovers given me. Okay, we'll put them here center so the decks don't get combined. And if anyone doesn't like a card, you can look through this deck and pick one more and replace one of your cards. You really hate a card?
Most of my cards are green.
Okay, but Uber nerd, maybe. Uber geek.
Uber nerd. Like Uber, the car service, you know? Nerds! Alright, so now I want you to pick one card, and this is going to be your most important card. This is what you consider to be your true self. This is the card that defines you the most, and I want you to put that up top.
Yes.
Okay? So now,
Dude! The guy's a slacker.
So now we're doing a full game. One player would be the scribe, and they would record everyone's 5 cards and which one was their true self in this book. and so they would keep track for everyone else the stuff in the game.
Is
Right?
it us or you, the author? Or
No, you as a crew,
Oh.
you would basically keep this thing, and you could keep track of everyone you fought, all your contacts, you know, the people you met, the names of people, and this is sort of a logbook of your characters' lives. And then when you're done with this, and then next game you can buy a new one and start over again. Okay, but really you don't have to have this. I prefer to not play with any paper and pencil.
Oh, does it come with a box?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's your true self. Now, is it your true self? Me? It's me.
Oh, thanks God.
Thanks, Sandro. All right. So now I want you to tell me about yourself. Explain your to the group who you are and what your name is. And
Okay. My
yeah.
character.
Yeah.
About this guy?
Yeah. And you guys can be Georgian, American, European, whatever you want to be.
Let's go with English.
Okay, we do.
Really?
I'm the martial artist.
Just to show me.
I call some Jimmy. I don't know. Maybe Jimmy. Okay, so be Jimmy. Instructor of martial arts. Okay, so I can. Can I describe this?
Sure, you can use that to help you explain your character, but really, right now we're just doing a quick demo, so just do a general thing. Explain how these things work together. Like, you know, I began as a bouncer years ago, my uncle's bar, and then I met this slimy guy who said, "Hey kid, come help me. I want you to rob some, you know, buildings for me." But really, in my heart of heart, you know, I had more fun playing World of Warcraft at home.
And where does Hitman come in?
Hitman, well, probably Cat Burglar led to Hitman, you know?
Hitman is the best. I think he shoots snake.
Yeah,
So maybe as a kid you were an urban nerd, but then your uncle talked you into becoming a martial artist, right? And then your uncle, once you're a martial artist, your uncle said, "Hey, you're a ninja now. Help me rob some houses. You owe me, kid." Okay? And you got pretty mad at your uncle, and so you basically found a job as a hitman, and you ran away from home, and now you're a hitman. But then you got so tired of killing people, it really got your heart, so you decided to become a bouncer. And now you're kind of stuck in this job. You're a little depressed. You have a lot of regret, and this is sort of your life. That's one way to do it. You don't have to do it that way, though. Okay. And what's your name?
My actual name or
No, your character.
Character name.